You are welcome to my YouTube channel. This is an introduction to HTML course, part 2, rendering your first HTML code. You can refer to part 1 of this course if you are new to the course before you embark upon this one. Summary. In this session, we are going to create and save an HTML document. We will open the HTML document in a web browser. We will then open the HTML document in a text editor again to update. And then we will open the HTML document in a web browser to view the new updates. Please, opening HTML document and editing and opening an HTML document in a browser is going to be a daily routine job as a developer. Okay, so let's look at part 1, create and save an HTML document. To create an HTML document, you need a plain text editor like Notepad on Windows or TextEdit on Mac OS, or an integrated development environment IDE like Visual Studio Code, Sublime Text, or Atom. Note: Microsoft Word and Google Docs are rich text editors with an enhanced user interface. For instance, when I open this document here, this is Google Docs. It has a very rich user interface with menus and icons. If you click the file, there are several menu options. The same as if you click the format, there are several menu options. You can select an object and then convert it into bold, as simple as that. Yet you can select other objects and convert it to a list of bulleted items. In the same way, you can also select two objects and convert it to a numbered list. If I want to underline something, you just select it and then you choose underline. In HTML, we don't have these tools, but rather we work with tags. So if you want to bold in something, there is a bold tag. If you want to create a bulleted list, there is a list element. If you want to create a numbered list, there is a numbered list element. If you want to underline something, there is an underline tag. You get a gist. If I go to this spreadsheet, for instance, the spreadsheet also has a lot of menu items and tags here. The same thing is available in HTML, but this time around they come in as what? As tags, but not this rich text editor that you can see. Okay, so when you want to work in HTML, you work with a plain text editor like Notepad, whereby you don't have any access to all those formatting stuff. You write everything yourself. When you start a Notepad, you can then create an HTML document in this Notepad. The HTML document starts with a basic template with a doc type declaration, the root HTML tag, the head tag with some few meta tags and a title tag, and then a body tag with a comment inside here. Please, you can read through them. I have explained all of them within the notes, and you can access this document in the description of this tutorial. When you are done, we can then open the document in a browser to see what you've done, and you can explore the browser with the browser development tools also to see what you've created. You can then open the HTML again in a text editor to update it. Okay. Now, what we are going to do is that I'm going to introduce you to some few tags, 4 tags in this case, 2 generic HTML tags and 2 other HTML tags. So the generic tags are the div tag, which is a divider and it's a block element, and then the span tag, which is an inline element. You understand very soon. Please note that all other tags in HTML are a derivative of either the div tag or the span tag. Most tags in HTML are a derivative of either the span tag or an HTML. So in effect, if you understand the div tag and then the span tag as a concept very well, then any other tag you work with in HTML will have the characteristics either of a div tag or of a what? Span tag. You look at the horizontal line element tag to draw horizontal lines. Then you look at the break tag to break a tag into two. These are examples of code that I'll be copying and pasting in our exercise for you to understand with. You can also copy and paste from this source document. But as a beginner, I will advise you to learn how to type your code very well, because it will be very useful to you in the distant future. When you are done, you can open the HTML in the browser again to view the updated document. So how do I start? I'll go to my Windows search option here and then type Notepad. So the Notepad app will be activated. So I open the Notepad. Let me expand the Notepad to block the whole view. Now from the Notepad, I can go to File, Save As. From the Notepad, I can go to File, Save As. When I go to File, Save As, please, the file of type is of essence here. By default, a Notepad saves its default file as a txt file or .txt file, as you can see here. But because I am creating an HTML file, I need to save it as an .html file. Okay, so I'll choose all files from the file as type. So you realize that by default, the HTML file, the .txt file disappears from the file name extension here. And I'll go to a folder here, and then I'll type in my new file name for the HTML. I can give it any name, but for the purpose of the course we are doing, I'll call this file index.html. Remember the .html. In some other books, they recommend you can write .htm, and it will be accepted, but I prefer to use .html file extension. So I have the file extension, I have the file name, then I can click on what? Save. So my file is now saved as index.html file. Let me go to the browser in which I saved it. Yep. If I come in here, this is the browser. My first HTML document is called index.html file. 0 kilobyte, there's nothing in it. So when I double click on it, it will open in the browser. Yes. So it's a blank file, there's nothing in it. You can't see anything. So let's inspect it. I'll right click and then choose inspect. As soon as I choose inspect, you realize that the browser inspector will open, as you can see by the name here. It is made up of several tabs: inspector, console, debugger, network, style editor, performance, memory, and so on. For now, we are only interested in the inspector. And if you check, you realize that we have HTML here by default, although we've not added it in our document. But because we named it as an HTML document, the browser knows that it is an HTML document, and as such, it must have a head, which currently it doesn't have. Then it must have a body, which currently it doesn't have. So to do that, I'll go back to my Notepad, and this my file is empty. And then I'll go into my notes and copy the basic HTML template from here. So I'll select the whole of this HTML here and copy it. So I'll choose copy. Then I'll come back to the Notepad. Then I'll come and choose paste. So now I have a HTML file with two HTML tags, a head, and then a body. Let me open it up so you can appreciate it well. Good. So you see there's a head here, there's a body here. Please, the tags needs not to be indented. I can send them back and bring them continuous head to head like this. The HTML code will still work. There's nothing wrong with that. If you download some files later on in the future, you see that they've done it this way. There's nothing wrong. You just need to tag them. But it becomes very inconvenient to work with them. I can expand it. You see, it will be a long list of tags if I do expand it. Good. So we have HTML at the beginning and we have HTML at the end. We have a head starting from here and then the head ending at somewhere here with a close tag. Then the body tag starting from here and then ending here. Then we have the comment tag which is inside here. But in this case, it becomes very inconvenient to work with. So it's always advisable to break them onto the next line to make work easier for you. So I'll put my marker on between the HTML and then the head tag here. And then I'll enter. When I enter, it will come into the next line. Then I'll tap to go to the next line. Okay. Then I'll come to the meta tag. I'll enter and tap that one also. And then indent that one also to the next line. Then after the meta tag, the next meta tag, I'll tap that one also to be in line with the next meta tag. Then the title tag, I'll tap that one also to be in line. Then the head tag, I'll enter and tab it to follow the head tag so that the head tag is in line, meta tags are in line. Then my body tag will also be in line with the head tag. Then I'll indent my comment tag. Okay, and then I'll enter my body tag and let it follow the same line as the body tag and then indent the HTML tag. So simply, this is what we have as an HTML tag so that there's no need to open my notepad editor to that extent. When I do this, then I go to File, then I save. I can then go back to my browser and then refresh. When you refresh, realize that now there is an HTML here. As you can see, there's a head tag with the meta tag 1, meta tag 2, and then the title tag up here. Then we have the body tag with a comment tag inside here and stuff. So basically, these are HTML tag. But because there is no content within the body here, you don't see anything here. So this is what I'm going to do. I'll go back to my notes here and then copy any content from this note. For instance, your HTML document should begin with a minimal structure and Control C. When I come in back to my text editor, where your content goes here is, I'll just replace it and Control V. So you see that we now have your HTML document should begin with a minimal structure. I've made an update to the file. So I'll need to save it. I'll choose Save. Then I'll go back to my browser. When I go back to my browser, you see that your content goes here is still there. But as soon as I refresh it, your content goes here, disappears, and is replaced by your HTML document should begin with a minimal structure. And that is what we see in the browser here. Your HTML document should begin with a minimal structure. Now, let me go back to the text editor again. I can copy this document on several lines. Control C. Enter. Tab, tab. Control V. Enter. Tab, tab. Control V. Enter. Tab, tab. Control V. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of text. Now, as compared to the first previously, which was just a single line of text. Now, I'm going to save the file again and save it. Now, let me go to the browser and then refresh the browser. I'll refresh. When I refresh the browser, I don't see any 4 lines of text. I see a continuous string of text that continue without any separation. Meanwhile, when I come to my note editor, it is 4 lines of text here. Please, in HTML, a text node is a text node. HTML only knows it as a text node. For me to be able to write them on different lines as this one, then I need to include them in what we call tags. Tags. If there is no tag around your structure, it is considered, or a text document, it is considered a text node. But when there is a tag around it, then it becomes an HTML document recognized by the browser. So if you come in here and you inspect here, you realize that it is telling us from the display screen that it is a what? A text node element. Okay. Now how do I bring in my first HTML tag? Let me go back to my notes here. From my notes, there are 2 basic generic tags that every HTML developer should know. The first one is a div tag, and then the second one is what? A span tag. So I'll scroll down here and then copy my first div tag. Copy. And then I'll bring it into my notes, and then select the whole of this and then replace it by that. Paste. You see, it is pasted here. A div tag, a closing div here, an opening div here, and then a closing div tag at the end. And then there's this tag here called HR, which is a horizontal frame tag. So when I save it now, save, and I come back to my browser, and then I refresh, you realize that I have welcome to my first website with a horizontal line at the bottom here. You get a gist. And if you come to the inspector, object inspector, okay, you should see that there's a new div tag here, okay, with welcome to my first website inside it. Then there's an HR tag which is denoted by this. So you can see the first tag, then you can see the second tag. Let me dock this browser to the right here and adjust it a bit. Okay, so I can see my inspector, then I can see my browser, and then dock my notepad also here so that I can see the 2 pages simultaneously. Okay, so this is my notepad. Let me leave it here. Now I can go in and then copy other tag. So the next one I'm going to copy is that I'll copy a span tag. So it comes with a comment, span tag, and then there's this span tag here with inner text content of this is a span box. So I'll copy this one, come back to my notepad, and then paste it here just below this horizontal line. So I'll tab it to the next line, then Control V. So let me tab it. Always you should see the body tags in line and then the head tags in line. Okay, so this is a span tag. Then I'll save it. When I come back to the browser that I'm using to render and I refresh, you see that there's a new span box here. And if you go to the inspector, there's a span box here. Now note the difference between the div tag and then the span tag. When you select the div tag, you realize that it spans the whole of the page from the end, one end to the other end. But if you check on the span tag, it just fits the content of the span tag. So when you select, you see that it is only the section with the text. This is a span box that is selected. It doesn't extend all the way to the end. But when you select the div, it covers the whole of the text to the end. Take note of this one. You can have a div of divs. That is, you can put div 1, div 2, and div 3, all of them in another div as you work. So I can copy this one, div of divs, copy, come to my notepad, and then paste the div of divs here on the next line. Control V. Okay, I can paste it on the next line here. Now I'll tab it inside. I'll tab this one to inside, so that we have this div which contains these 3 divs. When I save it and I come back to my browser which I'm using to render, and I refresh, you realize that there is 3 lines of text. But the 3 lines of text, if you go to the browser, you can select all of them, and they are encased in one div. And when I open that div also, it's also made up of 1, 2, 3 individual divs. And note, this div spans the whole page, highlighted in blue. This div also spans the whole page, which is also highlighted in blue. And the 3rd div also spans the whole page, which is also highlighted in blue. And if you select the mother div that contains these 3 divs, you realize that the mother div also spans the whole page. Now let's try with a div of spans. So I'll come in here and then copy a div containing 3 spans. Okay, so I'll just copy it, right click and then choose copy. Then I'll come back to my notepad. Then just beneath this div, I'll tab again and then Control V and paste it. So I need to tab the divs. Div 1, span 1, span 2, span 3, and then the div. So this is the div of spans. And then I'll choose File and then Save. When I come back to my browser to check and I refresh, you realize that we have, this is a span box item 1, span box item 2, span box item 3, arranged side by side. So if you look at it in the browser here, and I come to the spans here, realize that this is the main div which spans the whole width. But the first span element here spans the width of its content. The second span also spans to the next content, and the next item also spans the width content. And the 3 of them are arranged side to the side inside the same div. But previously, when you take the div ones, they span the whole width. This one also spans the whole width, and this one also spans the whole. So in effect, always when you place a div and another div, by default, the divs are stacked on top of the other. But when it comes to a span, it doesn't span the whole page, and it is not stacked on top of the other, but it's stacked side by what? By side. Okay. Let's look at the next example. Nested span in a div. So I'll copy this nested span in a div here. Copy it. Come to my text editor. Paste it on the next line. Control V. I'm very lazy at typing. That's why I prefer to copy stuff. So we have nested span in the div. So we have a div here and then a closing div there. Then in between this, there is a paragraph of text. And within the paragraph of text, you can select some text elements within the text and then put a tag around it. Says span 1, span here in this case. So the paragraph of text here is encased in another tag called what? Span. Let me save it. And then go back to my browser, refresh it. you see that you still see that this is a paragraph of text on my page. But when you go to inspect, you don't see any drastic difference from just viewing it in the browser. But if you go to the inspector and then open the div, you realize that this div spans the whole page. But the span of text, which is a paragraph of text, which I've selected here, is embedded within the whole page. And because you've put that one in a different tag, you can work on it separately as compared to this is on my web page. Okay. Now let's look at the next scenario. I have a div of nested divs and spans. So I'll copy the whole of this one. This is a bigger div. Okay. Copy this one. And copy it. Then I'll come to my notes editor here. And when I come to my note editor, I'll come to the next line after this one and paste this one to Control V. It's becoming more complex, but take your time. Let's take it one after the other. So I'll scroll to the top where I came from. Okay, nested div, nested span in a div is this one. Okay, so that's the next line. Then this is a div of nested divs and spans. So that's the first div here. So I'll tab it in to be on the same line. So within that one we have a div, which this is a div in a div box. Then there's a span in a div box as another tag here. So let me open this one a bit. Okay. So we have a span in a div box. This is what I copied, the one I did at the top. But only that I'm including this one, that one, and then this div of divs here, and then this div of spans here. Okay. And then another one, div of nested spans in a div here. So I'm including that one too in another div here. So if you look at it, this div 1, this another div, this also another div. But let me tab these spans inside. There's a span, and then a span here. Okay. And then if you look at it, this is a div at the top here. There must be a closing div at the bottom, which we don't have. So I'll enter and then add a closing div at this point. I'll type it in this case, div close. Okay, so I have a closing div at the point here. So this is the opening div, this is the closing div. If you have forgot to add the slash, so I'll add a slash to close it. This is the closing div. So this div is made up of div 1, div 2, div 3, div 4, and then div 5. And they are all enclosing one div, which is div 6. So I'll go to File and save it. Now let me go back to my browser. Within my browser, here, the one I'm working with here, which is Firefox, I would refresh it. When I refresh it, you see that the content is now many. You might think each of them is an individual line element, but if you zoom in to the inspector here, and then you come down here, you see that when you hover over this one, it highlights the whole of that div of nested divs and spans. And when you open it up, you realize that there's this div is separate, that div is separate, this div is also separate, which is made up of individual divs, and then this div is also separate. Okay, then that div is also separate, and this particular div here at the bottom, you take a look at it, it's made up of a div here with 1, 2, 3 divs inside it. And when I open this div, it's also made up of a div with a text element and then a span tag inside of it. Okay, now let me talk of some two tags before I continue. You realize that this is span box 1, This is span box item 1, this is span box item 2, this is span box item 3. They all follow one line. If I want you to bring it to another line, okay, I can use the BR tag. It's also called the break tag. So I'll go in here and look at this one. This is span 1, span 2, span 3. I'll just add the BR tag here. BR tag. BR tag at the back. And when I add it to the first one, it will break it onto the next line. So that these two ones will be a span element. Let me add the horizontal tag to it. So you appreciate it very much. So I'll add the HR tag. HR tag to it. Then when I finish, you save it. Please remember to save your file anytime you do an edit or a major edit. And when you refresh it, you realize that this span now is broken onto a new line where I've introduced a horizontal bar. Okay. Now to separate the work that I've done, I'm going to introduce more horizontal bars. So I'll go from the top between the body. Welcome to my first website, the first div. There's a horizontal panel under it. So I'll just copy the HR tag here. Control C. After the span tag, tap, Control V. After the div of divs, tap, another horizontal tag, Control V. After the div of spans 2, another horizontal tag, Control V. After the nested span in a div, another Control V there. Then for the div of divs, I'll not put any horizontal tag, so I can save it and then come back to my browser and then refresh. Then you see the divisions between them. So basically, this is what you need to know with regard to creating your first HTML code. If you want to edit it, you still need to come back and edit. But take note, I am using div tags and span tag to make a point. I'm a semantic HTML guy. So in our future videos or in our future sections, we will not be using div tags and span tags, but we'll be using semantic tag. And every semantic tag that you take, being it H1 tag, a P tag, a bold tag, it is either a div tag of in nature or a span tag in nature. So every tag is either a div tag or it is what? A span tag. Thank you very much for being with me.